January 3rd. After 2 years of planning and hoping, we were on the final leg of our journey. Remember that fable about crossing a river with just one boat and a cargo that includes a hungry fox and plump chickens? That's like me and our pilot trying to figure out how to get explosives, fuel, and people out to our camp.
We've got 5 cargo flights staged at WAIS. We need 1, 2, and 3 to have a full camp on the ice shelf. We don't need 4 and 5, but we do need 1, 2, and 3.
We can't carry the detonators with the explosives, and we can't carry fuel with either of those.
It's a real-world logistical puzzle, but with pieces that can kill you if you don't solve it right the first time.
So what we can do is basically take you guys out here. We will do our recce and everything as per normal for the first trip. We'll let you guys stay there for a little bit while we shuttle explosives, and then we'll come back, we'll shuttle the detonators.
Science, safety, weight, weather, it's all literally up in the air.
By that time, the other airplane should be on its second load into your camp, and then what will happen is they'll bring your other person, your personal bags, and we'll take you 3 and Leo and 2 drums of fuel so that they have the fuel stage for tomorrow morning, and then we can go to camp and you guys can remain there.
I think we can do it. It'll be really tight.
An ice shelf is a plate of floating ice, hundreds of meters thick, fed by glaciers flowing off the ice sheet. From space, we've been able to see giant bergs break off the Pine Island ice shelf, the part of the glacier that extends out over the ocean. This ice is already floating, so when it melts, it won't raise sea level. But ice shelves are like giant corks in a bottle. When they collapse, it's easier for glaciers farther inland to flow down into the ocean, and that will have a major impact. We could see blue all along the calving front. Open water peppered with thin sea ice and a few giant tabular icebergs. Was the missing sea ice because of unusually warm water? That's what we were here to find out. Clearly, this was a very active place where the ice sheet was racing to re-enter the world's ocean. The scenery changed as we neared the heart of the Pig ice shelf. Crevasses told us of rapidly moving ice. The 2 mountaineers and I were awestruck by their size, their number, and their beauty. I'd looked at them in satellite images for years, but now they're right outside my window, 50 feet across, more than a mile long, and deep enough you don't ever want to know. Then we saw the sweet spot I'd identified from space-based pictures, a place we just might be able to land.
Have you guys seen any signs of crevassing in this area?
No, the things I see going at a different angle across this smoother stuff, I think are just, I'm pretty sure that's all wind. Yeah.
So anywhere in here, eh, Bob?
Yeah, you got it.
Alright, we're gonna kind of come around, keep these other crevasses on the right side. Then we'll line up into wind and do a nice hard ski drag. Probably do 2 or 3 ski drags. And just see if anything falls in.
In a ski drag, you're still flying, but you're also touching the surface.
So, okay guys, we're gonna circle around, do a ski drag if you guys want to put your seatbelts on.
Okay, we'll do it.
The idea is to use the weight of the plane to break open any hidden snow bridges, then circle around and check your tracks for crevasses.
Ground speed.
77.
This is gonna get rough for a second here, guys.
A ski drag is like a controlled crash landing. You touch down under power. No gaping holes. So far, so good.
Might be hard to even find our tracks again with the snow being that hard.
Yeah.
Okay, well, looking good. going to be a full flap landing and we'll be stopping, okay? We saw our tracks there. We didn't cave any bridges in, so it should look pretty good. And when we land, just get a good walk around the airplane first of all, I guess.
It actually looks very smooth too.
Ice shelf. This is it. This is hard. This is a hard ice shelf. What's going on underneath? That's what we're going to find out. It's a lot harder than I expected. It must blow really, really hard here. It's got this really fine roughness to the surface. I thought for sure there'd be some soft snow, but none to be seen. Dangerous out that way. Dangerous out that way. A little bit less dangerous down that way. Dangerous out that way. We're in the sweet spot on the ice shelf, about the only place you can land. We start turning unexplored wilderness into a landing strip we can use over the next week. We shovel snow into trash bags that will mark the edge of the runway. I am unbelievably relieved. It's been a lot of angst involved in thinking whether we can really do this or not. But we're here and we're going to bring our cargo and we're going to do our work, and next year we're going to drill right here. We're moving a foot an hour right here. Kind of moving like this. Can't feel it, but we are racing along. It almost feels like concrete. You don't sink in at all. And the plane could barely see its first tracks. But it's safe. It sort of lines up with what we saw in the imagery. So we're in a spot and we've got a field campaign. So I was nervous up until that point. But yeah, we touched down. It was all right. My mind was racing as I thought how great the next week was going to be, as we actually began to make those all-important measurements that would help us understand how ocean and ice were interacting. My euphoria was short-lived. Within an hour, the pilot's voice was coming through my headset with, "Bob, we have some bad news. Our landing site was too hard and too rough." Was there an alternate location? No. Satellite images and our own eyes showed crevasses all around us. One plane supporting Antarctic research had already crashed on takeoff this season. No injuries except to the aircraft. NSF and the pilots did not want a repeat. Could we land somewhere next to the ice shelf? No, not if we wanted to measure the warming ocean down below. If we didn't come up with some solution, my entire program would be gutted.
Julie's going to call back probably within 15 to 20 minutes, and then work out some kind of plan and go from there.
There were emergency calls from NSF in Washington and back to McMurdo Station.
They were in touch with Brian, and Brian doesn't feel that the shuttles are a good idea because it's too many. It's increasing the risk of damaging the airplane because we're doing too many shuttles back and forth. So I think they might. Well, they might ixnay the whole thing.
What are the maximum number of flights? Because if there's a maximum number, then you should use them all up.
They won't give us a number. I don't think they should, because each one's a risk.
Okay.
So they're not going to say we're comfortable with 5,
Right.
because they're not comfortable with 5. They're not comfortable with 1. But they feel their role is to help support the science. But so it's a judgment call. It's not too objective. It's pretty subjective. It's their call on safety, and there's no appeal to that really, and nor should there. I was worried that the herd couldn't land here because it was going to find soft snow, because I thought we'd find soft snow here too.
Okay.
And that was just the opposite. I pride myself on anticipating all the possible problems, but this was bigger than anything I'd thought of.
Okay, here we go. Bob for Kelly.
All our science plans hung on these phone calls.
Hello. Hello. Hi. My interpretation of this is it's not about the crevasses. I think we answered that question. There is a large enough uncrevassed area on the ice shelf. And we came here to answer that question, and I think we did answer that question. So that I regard as progress. The issue for the otters is more the character of the surface, and that it's too hard. Yeah, it's the roughness and the hardness. It's the combination of the two.
I was listening to our research season fall to pieces. What could we do to salvage worthwhile science and move ahead?
Then there's one other part of the science program for this year that we would still like to do, and that's set up the automatic weather station, not on the ice shelf, but to pick another spot. And that would be a good thing to do scientifically, no question about it. AWS, they want to see it put in. So, I understand ice shelf is out. Totally out,
Yeah.
so we're not going to
Because we went right to the water edge. Because Ian said you guys pretty much covered the grid north portion. So we went way south.
So the backup is we still want to get the AWS in. That's not going to go on the ice shelf. That's going to go elsewhere.
Okay.
David and I are going to look at a few candidate sites.
Okay.
So we're looking for an alternate sites for putting in the weather station.
Okay.
Bob has selected 4 candidates. He's marking them in Google Earth as 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're basically starting at the coast, if you can see it there. And he's picked 4 sites going further and further inland. Primary is 1, etc. If 1 doesn't work out, we'll head to Camp 2, 3, and 4. And each place is picked to be flat ice without crevassing as much as possible and slow moving.
I was an emotional wreck that night. Back in New Zealand, I'd said, going to a new place, that's the real challenge.
I don't want to do things I've done before, but something that takes us to a new place, especially things that take us to a place where people say we can't go and things we can't do.
My only consolation was that we're pushing the very edge of the logistics envelope. We'd designed this season to be more reconnaissance than science. We were getting answers to long-standing questions, even if we didn't like those answers. Safety had beaten us on the ice shelf. Would crevasses get us next? We went to bed not knowing what Antarctica had in store for us next.